we think of our devices and the light that emanates from them as like oxygen or water. It's like as much as you want, anytime you want, all the time, anytime. And we are missing the fact that it has a direct physical impact on ourselves and our bodies.
Meredith, thanks so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Wendy.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your mission to help others?
So my name's Meredith Oke, and by profession, I'm an executive coach. So for the last sort of 10 to 12 years, I've worked part-time while raising my kids, helping people, with their careers and job searches and things like that. And then over the last few years, I had some personal health issues, and they were bad enough that it was affecting my quality of life, but not bad enough that any doctor had anything helpful to say. They would run all my labs and they'd be like, no, you're fine. And I would say, but I don't feel well. I don't have enough energy to get through my day on every day. So that led me down many different trajectories in terms of trying to get healthy. And ended up going down this rabbit hole of how light affects our health. And it was information that was so stunningly obvious. But I just couldn't believe that I didn't know about it. I thought, if this is true, why doesn't everybody know this? Right? Like if it's true that looking at my phone before I go to bed is undoing all of the work that I've done during the day to get healthy in terms of eating and taking supplements and doing all these things, and then I just trash it all in 30 minutes by reading my iPad at night, like why didn't I know that? And so then I kept waiting for this information to become more widespread. I thought, well, now that it's out there a little bit, people will pick it up. I'll start seeing articles about it. I'll start hearing more about it. And it just really didn't. And when COVID hit, my husband and I decided to take a kind of a year off. And during that time, we just started interviewing all of the doctors and all of the researchers and all of the health practitioners who'd been helping us. And we decided to create a website to share that information with whoever wants it.
Nice. And so you talk a lot about blue light, and you mentioned that blue light has the same impact as eating sugar. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. So I feel like for any relatively health conscious person, it's common knowledge that sugar is not great for us, right? Like it raises our blood sugar, it causes problems. And while it tastes delicious and it's really fun to eat, anyone who's serious about their health, it consciously moderates their sugar intake, right? Like we decide when we're going to have sugar. We have water instead of iced tea. So then when we have a dessert, we haven't had too much sugar. When it comes to blue light, we need to start thinking about it in the same way, right? Like it's not like you have to get rid of it completely, but we think of our devices and the light that emanates from them as like oxygen or water. It's like as much as you want, anytime you want, all the time, anytime. And we are missing the fact that it has a direct physical impact on ourselves and our bodies. And in fact, I won't go into the science of it as it's kind of complicated, but blue light raises your blood sugar. And that's just one of the many effects, many of the detrimental effects that the blue light coming out of a device like a phone or a laptop or an iPad can have at the wrong time of day.
Mm-hmm. So, because naturally, you're looking at like the noon sun, it's going into your eyes, it raises your cortisol. Hey, time to wake up, time to get busy and do stuff. And that raises your blood sugar. So naturally, it just makes complete sense.
Absolutely. You totally understand it, Wendy. You've got it. Like that is it. That is it. Exactly. And the manufacturers of the devices understand that at a certain level, which is why the light frequencies are set the way they are, because they want people to feel invigorated and active when they're using their devices, when they're using their laptops. So I don't know whether it was just out of, not understanding circadian rhythm or what it was, but those same light frequencies, which are fine in the middle of the day. Like right now I have my computer set to the normal frequencies, the factory settings, because it's the middle of the day where I am and it's no big deal. But we are so finely tuned, like our cells, we evolved under sunlight, right? Like for all of human history up until the last 100 years, you were either outside in natural light or in a dark room, maybe candles, maybe a fire, right? So that's all that our cells know. And so they were programmed to do all of this, the symphony of hormones and neurotransmitters and everything that happens in our body was programmed by light. So when you mess with that, you mess with everything.
Yeah. Are there any, apps that we can use to correct, so when the sun goes down to lower that blue light effect on our computers or on our phones?
Yeah, there's a great one for laptops. Phones are a little trickier. There's one for laptops called Iris, and you can turn your screen like basically black and orange. Can take all of the blue light out of it. And it comes with some presets that they recommend, but you can also just manually do it so that you can, if you need to go on it at night and as it gets later in the day, you can start to adjust the light on your screen. It doesn't work on phones, so you have to use the blue light settings that come with the phone, but they're getting better and better, so you can get them darker. I just personally try to not use my phone after a certain time because unless you order a plastic orange film and put it over the screen on your phone, or the other thing is to wear blue blocking glasses.
Yes. Oh, and
there are a lot of good brands.
Yeah, what brands do you like?
So there's a great company called Raw Optics, founded by a guy called Matt Maruca. There's another fantastic company called Viva Rays, which was founded by a young man called Rudy Nassif and his wife, Joy. And the third one that I really like is Lucia Eyes, which was founded by a dad and his daughters because they thought all the blue blocking glasses on the market were really ugly. So they got together with their dad and made some pretty ones.
Nice. Yeah. And so do you like the Iris better than Flux? Flux is another app you can download for your computer to turn off the blue light.
I have heard Flux is good as well. I've had Iris recommended more often to me by the photobiologists and things that I've interviewed. So I tend to stick with that one, but I think Flux is fine.
Okay,
if you can see the screen darkening and you can see it becoming orangey and kind of yucky, it's not as nice to look at. The colors get distorted a little bit. Then it's probably working.
Okay, great. Perfect. So if you don't like looking at your screen, it's working. And so you have a red light shining on you right now. What is that for?
So that's a light by EMR Tech. It's called a photobiomodulation device. We turn them on in the evening and just even during the daytime, I usually try and do things like this outside, but it's not feasible today. So I have a big bright LED light on overhead. So I turned the red infrared light on to balance that out, because that's another reason the way that our light bulbs and our screens and stuff destroy our health is because people will say, but there's blue light in the sun, and there absolutely is, but it's always balanced out by other frequencies, right? It's kind of like one of our coaches, Nathan, talks about like eating an apple is different than if you sucked all the sugar out of the apple and just ate the sugar. So like a white LED light bulb or a screen device is like just one frequency of light when really we're supposed to be absorbing multiple frequencies at a time.
That's why we like them so much. Yes, the blue light. It's very stimulating. It's we're always like, we're always staring at our phones. And so I'm glad you segued into light bulbs because I live in Mexico and I abhor those, LED spiral lights. They're like the candy light bulbs. They give you that pure blue light. And so when you go to the bathroom at night, you want to turn on the light. It's like, oh, hello, it's noontime, time to wake up. And so people, wonder why they have trouble going back to sleep, after they wake up, especially if they look at their phone and then go to the bathroom or whatnot. So for me, I just want those regular tungsten light bulbs, but they don't have them here. I mean, they do have them in the US. They have like the old school bulbs. Yeah. What do you recommend for bulbs?
Yeah. So for light bulbs, I would recommend like for the bathroom at night, it can even be LED, but just get a red colored one because it's really the frequency that you want, you want to stay away from any frequencies that are not present in nature during the day or not present in a fire at night. So in our bathroom, we have a light switch that turns on a normal light for the daytime. And then we have a light switch that turns connected to a separate light bulb that's red. So
That's
when we go
smart.
in there at night, we just turn on that light switch. So the bathrooms, so we're never exposed to bright light.
And are there any like type of regular light bulbs that you recommend, like there a brand or a type of light bulb that you recommend people put in their homes versus the LED spiral lights that are so prevalent right now? Because they're kind of marketed as, oh, it has 3,000 hours of light time, but there's a cost to that. So what light bulb do you prefer?
So we use a lot of different kinds. There's a brand called Edison bulbs, which are more the old fashioned kind of light bulbs, and they give off a softer orange light.
Do they have like the little, like they're like a glowing kind of wire inside them?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And so they're like kind of a orange color. So in order like to live a circadian optimized life, we're going to have to like accept that our home is not, you never want your home to be super bright after sunset. You want to keep like a campfire vibe. So there is some getting used to, because there is no light bulb that's good for you at night that's as light as a traditional LED bulb. So it's always just going to be a little bit dimmer everywhere. So the Edison bulbs are good. So we kind of use a combination of red LEDs, Edison bulbs, and then the photobiomodulation devices, which we keep on the floor. Because another thing to think about is that from an evolutionary standpoint, you didn't have overhead light in the evening either. Like the fires were always on the ground or low down. So
yeah, I never really thought about that. Yeah. Never thought about that. I mean, your sconces,
it's a deep rabbit hole.
Your sconces on the floor. Yeah, you're going down that rabbit hole. Yes. I'm like, damn it, it's one rabbit hole I haven't gone down yet. Yeah, and so tell us about how light affects our body, because a lot of people put, they'll wear an eye mask or whatnot. There's some light coming into their window. How is that light affecting their bodies? I know there's a multitude of ways.
There's been research over the last few years. So this research is all really new, which is why it's not that well known. So it sort of takes a while to seep into the different institutions that control the curriculum and our media and everything. But there's been some research recently that shows that our skin actually has light receptors in it. So wearing a sleep mask is great and helpful. However, to get optimal sleep, where your body goes into a state called autophagy, where your brain starts to clean itself and your cells start to repair themselves and your melatonin is released, and this like unbelievable, amazing all these mechanisms come into play. Like, to have that be optimized, you really don't want any light at all in the room where you're sleeping, even if you're wearing an eye mask, because your skin knows it's there, which sounds crazy, but they found photoreceptors in the skin. So the rule of thumb that is used is if you hold your hand up about 12 inches in front of your face in your bedroom at night, if you can see it, it's too light. So you really want to get rid of anything like especially if it's street lights or artificial light, even like the little crack around the edge of your curtains or coming in under your door. Like when I go to hotels, I bring tape, because I've become so sensitive that if the curtain doesn't cover that edge and you're over a parking lot or something, like I can't sleep.
Tape it up. Yeah. That's a good idea, because sometimes it's just a fabric curtain that's just not going over the edge. Yeah, tape it. That's perfect. That's brilliant. Yeah. And how is that light affecting our pineal gland that produces our melatonin? So how does that melatonin production work with light, and what does melatonin do, for anyone that doesn't know?
Yeah, so melatonin is the sleep hormone, and it's actually created in the morning. So that's the other piece, is on the one hand, you want to mitigate artificial light, but on the other hand, you want to increase and really organize your exposure to natural sunlight. So the light spectrum at sunrise is different than at any other time of day. And when you go outside first thing in the morning, so within, let's say, half an hour of the sun coming up, the light spectrum that's present then starts to program your body to create melatonin. And then the light frequencies at sunset and the ensuing complete darkness tell your body to release and use that melatonin. So just as important as mitigating artificial light after sunrise is to expose ourselves to natural light as soon as we wake up. So we've gotten in the habit now of waking up pretty close to sunrise. And it's kind of annoying, right? Because you schedule life around it and then the seasons change and the time of the sunrise changes. You have to like redo everything. But going outside first thing in the morning for even 5 to 10 minutes, if you can't do that, even opening a window and having that natural light be the first thing that hits your eyes, you're actually programming your body to have a better night's sleep like 12 hours later.
Yeah, there's so many people that are just not getting sunlight because they've been told by their doctor, oh, avoid the sun like a vampire. And that's just crazy. To think that someone knows more than Mother Nature, how our bodies have evolved for millions of years to be in the sun. But I understand some people are sensitive to the sun, but you can still go out for a few minutes, in the morning. So let's talk about performance in light and light exposure. So how can light improve your performance in general, like, at work, athletically, et cetera?
Yeah. So optimizing your light environment. So doing the things we've talked about. And I don't know your reasons for moving to Mexico, but you're in an ideal situation, right?
Oh, girl, you know what? I'm here to get lights. Yes. 20 around the clock.
So
yes.
Great. Yeah. And that's perfect because you're in a light, stable latitude. So you don't have, you have absolute beautiful sun exposure every single day all year.
Yeah. Yeah. And I go for a walk every morning or almost every morning, or I sit outside and I get sun. Yeah. And I've been so much happier than I've been here because I've really, I've always really done that, but really much more so am drawn towards getting sunlight every single morning.
That's so interesting.
And moth to the flame.
Good for you. Well, yeah. And it's like, because we all kind of know this, like we go on vacation and we feel so happy and we think, well, it's because I'm on vacation. And that's probably part of it, but it's also getting that sunlight completely changes our mood, changes our outlook. It makes our brains work better. It makes our bodies work better. So yeah, in terms of performance, I mean, the thing that I love so much about light is that you get like an asymmetric result, right? Like nothing that I've said is really that hard or complicated or expensive, right? In fact, I found it much easier to change all my light stuff than all my food stuff back when I was, dealing with that. But the results are absolutely astonishing because we just don't realize how tightly connected everything is. So improving your sleep, improving your autophagy, what I was saying, like your brain gets cleaner, you start to think better. Like I had brain fog for years. And everyone would tell me, well, that's, I guess the slow decline has started. And I was like, I'm like 39. Like, no, this is not happening. I refuse to accept that I'm just going to not be able to remember anything for the next 45 years. Like, no. So the sharpness, that like mental sharpness that like when we were, maybe when you were in college, you could like write a paper or do a whole bunch of work at the last minute and you could just like decide to think like that and you'd be able to, that starts to come back. And we have a lot of like fitness professionals in our community who use red light to help athletes recover, who do all of their training outside unless it's like totally a blizzard or something. And they find that all of the results with their clients improve. A lot of professional athletes, they don't talk about it too much because they don't want to give away their secrets, but especially like NFL players have started to use red lights as recovery tools. They have you can get even like a whole like bed, like a tanning booth, but red light and get down and lie in it. And it just helps your cells and your muscles, everything repair faster.
Yeah. I use red light because I'm an athlete. Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm a walking athlete. Walking. Well, no, I'm doing Pilates.
Kind of athlete. I love it.
No, I'm doing Pilates too, but I'm doing the red light really helps. Like I have lower back stuff going on and it really helps reduce inflammation so that I can just keep going and punishing my body with the walking.
So, but absolutely. And in inflammation, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's sort of like, it's the root of all the badness, right? Like everything. And a healthy light environment reduces inflammation. So people are like, oh, well, it will help changing my light environment help with this disease or that thing or that? And I'm like, yes to all of it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not prescribing anything, but it's like saying, will breathing cleaner air help me feel better? Yes. It's that fundamental. And you're all dialed in. You got a red light. You're in Mexico.
I am dialed in.
I love it.
Yeah.
You are quantum optimized, Wendy.
Yeah. It only took 10 years to dial in. Yeah. But, Rome was not built in a day. So I'm okay with that. Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about, so how do you get your kids and your family and everyone on board with this new lifestyle, like wearing blue blocking glasses? Let's talk about those for a minute.
Yeah. So it's a little bit tricky. And I like to address that because a lot of times, if you're, the parent in a family and you want to get everyone eating healthier, even if they're not excited about it, they kind of know where you're coming from. Like everyone kind of knows, like, yeah, maybe we should eat, more of this and less of that or whatever. But when you show up and you're like, I would like everyone to put on these glasses if you want to play a video game or watch TV after sunset, they're all like, what are you talking about, you psycho?
That's exactly the response of my 11-year-old who's going on 16. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. My daughter is now 15. She was, around 11 or 12 when I started with this. And she was just like, I am never going to be able to have friends over ever again because of your stupid lights. And we're all wearing these stupid glasses. So yeah, I think, whenever you're implementing change on someone else's behalf, it's a sensitive, and as you said, Rome wasn't built in a day. So the first thing I try to do when I'm trying to get my kids to make a change that they are not that into is to make sure that our relationship in general is in a pretty good place. If I'm, if we're having a really hard moment with, homework or some area of life and there's tension, like that's just not going to be the time where I try to get them to do something else that they don't want to do. So really like picking the moment and picking the battle. And I just also feel that kids just need to be acknowledged, right? Like, I completely validate their response. I'm like, I know it's crazy. I know it's totally weird. No one else is doing it. This is psycho. I get it. And then I'll give them some reasons. And depending on the age at the end of the day, it's like, you can choose to not wear them and not watch TV. Like that's an option. And it definitely took time for everyone. Now they mostly automatically do it.
Yeah, I mean, my concern with
really
kids,
just a delicate thing.
Yeah, I mean, my concern with kids is that, their brains are developing. They need their sleep. They're growing at a very fast rate and they love their devices. They grew up with them and it's probably changed their brains to a certain degree. And, they're on them. I mean, it left to their own devices. They'll be on them 24/7, on them until they go to sleep at night, for many cases in many homes. And so it can, certainly impair their development to a certain degree in the quality of their sleep and how deeply they sleep. So it's a real concern.
Yeah, Wendy, I completely agree with you. And we, as parents, we kind of had our kids at this moment where all of this technology became totally ubiquitous, but none of the research was out to show the result of it. So there is starting to be some now. And so now you hear more and more about screen time and restricted screen time and that kind of thing. But, for people who had children in the last 10 years, it's just been a bit of a free for all. But now the research is really clear and everything that you just said is absolutely true. Even our last pediatrician was like, does your son have a cell phone? Hold off as long as possible. It is absolutely damaging their brains. And so the hard part is then it's like another thing that's incumbent upon the parents to deal with, right? Like we have like all devices have to be downstairs by a certain time. Like it's just a no-go in our house to stay on past then. And ideally I'd love to have them off the device in the evening, but I'm settling for orange glasses at this point. But yeah, absolutely. You want all the tech out of the bedroom because their sleep is even more important than our sleep. You're right. And the brains are repairing and building while they're sleeping. And any technology in the room, even Wi-Fi, you should turn off at night. Like you want the room as clean as possible from an energetic standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, the Wi-Fi acts like light. I mean, your pineal gland kind of doesn't know the difference between those frequencies, where the blue light and the Wi-Fi both irritate that pineal gland and prevent melatonin production.
Yes.
Yeah. And so let's talk about sunglasses. So sunglasses, people are wearing them when they go out into the daylight. What's the problem with that?
So again, you are taking a man-made device and interrupting the natural pattern of the light frequency. Also, just from a practical standpoint, we spend so little time outside in our day-to-day lives that anytime we're outside, we want our eyeballs free to be absorbing, right? Because I talked about the photoreceptors in the skin, but it's also like there's a clock, the supraplasmatic nucleus, like behind your eye, that's reading all these light frequencies. So if you put on sunglasses, you're interrupting your circadian biology by not allowing your eyeball to be absorbing the actual frequencies that are coming out of the sun. So obviously, like if you're skiing or out on a boat, like protect your eyes for sure. But just walking around outside during the day, you want to be optimizing every single second that you have like the privilege of being outside, because we're indoors so much. You don't want to mediate it with anything unless it's an extreme situation. So same goes for suntan lotion, right? Like, I grew up at a time where we were told, like, don't leave the house without SPF 20 on your face or you're good.
Oh my God. I used to leave the house like a clown. Like I would have this white sheet, and then I put like powder over it to give myself some color. And then I would walk around the USC campus with an umbrella, like a big dork, and I'd have gloves on also, thinking I was somehow preventing aging. It's so ridiculous.
You're so funny. I was the same way. I remember going on a trip with my girlfriends to Mexico, actually, in my late teens, early 20s. And like, I was almost the same color on the last day as the first day, because I was so like, oh, I'm wearing sunblock and I'm in the shade.
This causes skin cancer, not that. Yeah, it's like, and now they're finding that not getting sun promotes skin cancer. So, because you're not making vitamin D, which prevents cancer. So
not being in the sun raises all-cause mortality. There's the Swedish study did that, where it was basically not going in the sun had the same damaged your life expectancy to the same level that smoking did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's amazing. I just remember my father, who died of cancer, just white as a sheet, because his doctor said, oh, going in the sun causes skin cancer. You don't want to ever go in the sun. I mean, he was white. I mean, for as long as I can remember, he just never went in the sun. It's just terrible.
Yeah. It's really sad, because we're not only adding in all the stuff that's destroying ourselves, we're mitigating all the stuff that could be healing it by being outside. And so you don't want to like go from, say, Minneapolis in February to lying out in Cancun at high noon with no sunscreen on. Like there's sensible sun exposure and ways to adapt to being in the sun, but certainly being outside in the morning and in the late afternoon, you don't need sunglasses and you do not need sunscreen.
Yeah, I go walking every morning. I do not wear any sunscreen. I'm kind of brown, but I fry in the sun. I don't really I might get a little bit pink, but yeah, I do not wear any sunscreen. I don't put sunscreen on my face. I'll wear a hat, but that's about it.
You've probably noticed this living in Mexico, like your body tells you when it's had enough, right? Like if you start to feel that kind of prickly, burny. I took my kids on a vacation, and as an experiment, I didn't put sunscreen on them, but I was like, if you feel like you're starting to get burned, go in the shade, like that kind of prickly. And they did. And we didn't use sunscreen and they didn't get burned. Because I do want to say, like, it is not a good idea to get sunburned or to overexpose.
Yeah.
But that being said, there's a vast distance before you hit the overexposure mark where it's very, very, very healthy to be out there.
Yeah, I did that policy too, where I'll go in the sun without any sunscreen, and then I'll reach a certain point and then I'll slather on the sunscreen once I've had, a good amount of sun exposure. So because I don't want to burn either. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you wanted to communicate to the audience about light or circadian rhythms or blue light?
I would just say that however this information is landing for you, it's probably more important than it feels like right now, right? Like, I'm just some lady on a podcast saying some stuff. The first few times I heard this, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, I guess. But it wasn't until I really hit the wall where I had exhausted all the other health modalities available. And and I could just feel that there was something I was missing. So I'd really encourage people to take it a little more seriously than you want to.
Yeah, I know it's inconvenient. It's inconvenient to do all this stuff, buy different light bulbs, do all this research, but you're there's a learning curve. You just do it once. And, I think what you just mentioned speaks to how many health issues have simple solutions where they're not this crazy, advanced, expensive protocol, or you have to get your genetics done or whatever else that people are pursuing, like their, shiny object syndrome that people have with health and trying different protocols and things like that. Sometimes it's just something really, really simple and getting back to basics: sunlight, hydration, minerals, et cetera. So it's, you have to touch all those bases first and then see what symptoms clear up. It's not always complex. It's pretty, it can be shocking how many things can clear up just getting back to basics by correcting your light. So tell us more where we can learn about you and your work. And it sounds like you're interviewing experts also. Do you have a podcast?
And so all my interviews are on our website, which is Quantum Health TV. It's a subscription site, but we also have a lot of free stuff on our Instagram, which is at Quantum Health TV. And I see myself as like the broadcaster. I'm not the expert. I bring on all of these people, doctors and scientists, and we do deep dives and they cover different aspects of it. And we'll soon be coming out with like a practitioner directory. I ended up, and as you did, you've gone very deep down this rabbit hole. But if I could have found a health coach or a doctor who understood this stuff a few years ago, I probably would have just gone to that person and had them help me, because I really feel like, having a one-on-one with someone who knows your case can be really helpful. So I also don't want to scare people off by making them think they have to study quantum physics or something to get this.
Yeah, so, exactly.
I would recommend good way to Instagram.
I know by experience, a good way to scare people away. It's talking about quantum physics. Yeah. Even though it's the basis of everything.
Yes. That's why we're starting to understand all this ancient wisdom, is because a quantum physicist and a cellular biologist got together and they're like, what if we worked together instead of in separate silos? And they discovered all of this. Yeah. That's led to all of this. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, Meredith, thanks so much for coming on the show. That was really, really good. I've never done a show about this before, and it's really important to talk about getting back to basics, fixing your light. Don't let that little light shine in your bedroom through your curtain. It's killing you. So it's really important to, understand these really basic things, and they're simple fixes. So thanks for coming on, and tell us again where we can find you.
So we're on Instagram at Quantum Health TV, Twitter, same thing at Quantum Health TV, and on the internet at quantumhealth.tv.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming on the show. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in every week to the Myers Detox podcast, where I want to help you detox every area of your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, everything. And we even have shows on energy vampires, how to detox those.
Yeah.
Because
that's important.
yes, because I want, just going through my own journey and everything that I've learned, it's just completely transformed my life, and everything I learn, I want to communicate to you on this show. And, you deserve to feel good. You deserve to feel joy. You deserve to be healthy and to feel good in your body. And I really want that for you. So thanks for tuning in every week. I'm Wendy Myers, and I'll talk to you guys next week.
The Myers Detox Podcast is created and hosted by Wendy Myers. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Wendy Myers and the producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.